All right, gang. You guys having a good day? I'm about to put a spell on you. And now you're mine. You can't stop the things I do because she's right outside. Everybody welcome Vinessa to Sinister Creature Con. Welcome.
Thank you.
Having a fun day?
Are you putting a spell on people?
I'm trying. Not a,
Listen, cover your ears. Hello, there we go.
Yeah,
I said cover your ears, but anyway.
I'm not as good as the book, or with the book, as Winifred, but
no, that was good. Hey, if anyone attempts it, it's good.
The Hocus Pocus phenomenon, man. And
right?
I do not use that term loosely, like, at all, because it is a phenomenon. This movie comes out. I can remember going as a kid.
Yeah.
The witches, of course. You got Bette Midler, Kathy, and Sarah are fantastic. But they're not as nearly as fantastic if they don't have like some cool kids as a kid for their adversaries.
Aww.
Growing up with like that movie Witches from like way back with Angelica Houston, I think.
Oh, Witches of Eastwick?
Where she like rips.
Oh no! Sorry, I'm not Witches of. She's not in it. I don't know. See, I'm sorry to disappoint everyone. I don't watch scary movies unless it has a comedic element. So, sorry.
Oh, we'll talk about that in a while. 'Cause I'm gonna be curious to see where you draw some of those comedic elements from. But
are we okay with the sound? Are we?
You guys can hear us, okay?
Too close or something? Okay. Sorry.
You come onto the scene with Hocus Pocus, and you are met with both this outstanding cast, but a really awesome story. And to top it off, one of the best directors as a film student that I have studied, as far as his ability to both tell stories that terrify and then just fanciful, like Hocus Pocus. So it really was like this all-star kind of production that Disney put together.
Yes.
What was it like? Just starting off, like, what was you finding out you got the role of Allison?
Well, I literally jumped up and down and screamed with my mom. You know, she was taking me to all these auditions, and I auditioned for it, and couldn't believe I got the lead role in a Disney movie because I grew up watching Disney movies, like the old 60s Disney movies, like, you know, any Haley Mills movie, you know, Parent Trap, That Darn Cat, and Flubber I loved, you know, like all those kind of fun Disney movies from the 60s. And so I just couldn't believe that I was in a Disney movie, and I hadn't even started filming yet. So I literally jumped up and down and screamed. I don't think I've ever done that again. That was like, I just knew I was going to have a great time on this.
You guys get to set, and is it actually Salem? Or did you guys actually went out to the East Coast to film it?
Yes.
I guess I should know that because everybody goes and visits Allison's house. And
oh my God, do they?
But, so you get to go out to the East Coast. Are you from East Coast or are you from West Coast?
No, I'm a California girl. So I grew up in L.A. So, but it's interestingly enough, my family on my mom's side is from Northern California. So my grandmother, was from Palo Alto. So I had cousins in Chico. I have cousins in Bakersfield and Stockton. So I'm like a real... All my cousins. I have that side is my Italian side of the family, so I have a lot of cousins up here, and then also in the Palo Alto and San Francisco area too. So, but yeah, no, we shot in Salem. We shot only 2 weeks there for all the exterior stuff. You know, the part where, you know, we are in the school. You know, and I diss him in the Commons. All of Max's like encounters with, you know, Ernie and Jay in the graveyard. All that was in Salem. But anything that had to do with the Sanderson house and Billy's graveyard, us jumping through the hole and going into that underground crypt, that was all on soundstage at Disney Lot, which was incredible because you as me as a child, like going on set, it was a full intact set. So like one part of the set was the Sanderson, and then you walked a little further, it was Billy's grave, and then, you know, the river was, you know, the little creek was going through it, the water wheel, all of that was right there on the stage. And, you know, most of that stuff now is CGI, and so we literally experience that magic every day going on set. And Thor and I always say, whenever we smell like, because being a California girl, you don't get this experience, but whenever we smell like mulchy, you know, leaves smell, we think of Hocus Pocus and not like what most East Coast people feel like, oh, it's autumn. I'm like, Hocus Pocus, you know. I smell Hocus Pocus. Haha.
The way that you break into the movie, too, it's very cool for people who love like the Halloween tradition.
Yes,
because
yes.
her character is very much Halloween tradition versus Max is like, I don't even know what you would call it, like new age.
California laid back, dude. Which is what, I don't know if you guys noticed, but we literally both, Max and Allison, say Halloween when it's, for East Coast people, it's Halloween. And so I'm like, not even on Halloween. So it's an accent thing. So I definitely gave away that Allison is definitely not from the East Coast because I just didn't know it was Halloween. But anyway,
I'm sure
just a side note.
I'm pretty sure everybody forgives.
I think so.
Just the classic, like, you have like, you are the antithesis of believing all this stuff, and he is the antithesis of not believing all of it.
Right.
And it's like total opposites attract type story.
Yeah.
And you guys, just that in itself could have been like a fun Halloween thing. But the fact that he pairs you up against the Sanderson, did you know like who they were? Did you watch any of their work to like know like holy smokes, like Bette Midler is coming on board to play Winifred? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
The only person I didn't know was Kathy, but then I promptly was introduced to her stand-up show, or her comedy sketch show called Kathy and Mo, which was really funny. But Sarah Jessica Parker and Bette Midler were like my idols. I probably just recently watched Beaches, which, you know, was like the tearjerker movie of the early 90s or late 80s. And Sarah Jessica Parker, I watched her on this TV show called Square Pegs. I loved her in that, and Footloose, and LA Story. I just was like, wait a minute, I'm working with these people. So it was slightly intimidating because this was only my second movie.
That in itself is wild, that you were just like starting out, teen actress, and then this falls to, well, it doesn't fall, you earned it, but you get the opportunity to play this part. It's pretty wild. Did you grow up, were you in like theater, always acting? Like, was this what always wanted to do type of a thing?
Well, interestingly enough, my mom moved from here, from Northern California, down to LA to be an actress, and so basically I was raised, you know, around the business. There's two sides of my story. So firstly, I grew up in this area called Topanga Canyon, and in that area they would do reshoots of Friday the 13th. They filmed Pumpkinhead there. This is literally down the hill from where I lived, and I would hear screaming at night and be scared and run to my dad. What's this screaming? He's like, look, they're filming a movie again. Look, there's a light. Okay, it's going to be, because it was like punctuated at the same time, like, you know. So I didn't understand that. And then, but my mom always had these, you know, director, producer friends around, because it was LA, and, you know, she was acting at the time. So my very first movie was this horror film called Home Sweet Home that her friend directed, and it was from, I don't remember his real name, but it's called his bodybuilding name was called Body by Jake. I don't know, you probably saw an infomercial with him in the early 90s, but he was the killer in that movie. And I was 4 years old, and I fell in love with this guy who had played a clown in the movie who ends up getting killed. But I didn't understand the difference between movie making and real life at the time because I was only 4. But I fell in love with this guy because he showed me tricks and stuff, and he was a cool clown. And I told him I loved you, and that was not it. I wasn't supposed to speak in the movie, and they're like, "Oh, we're keeping that in. That's your first line in a movie. Yay!" But then I saw Body by Jake guy doing this thing where he would come into the room and had a knife because he was killing everybody at Thanksgiving. Nice way carving us. So he came in with the knife and was like, ah, and I remember the director going, cut, try again. And I was like, why is he doing it over and over again? And then I was like, that was the first time, like a flashbulb memory I had of what acting was. And then later was the, Nightmare on Elm Street type stuff, or Friday the 13th stuff. And then later my mom was trying to avoid me getting in the business, even though she introduced it to us early on. And I was on auditions with her, doing commercials, and people are like, "Oh, are you auditioning for the daughter part?" She's like, "No, I want her to wait till she can 16 and she can drive herself to auditions because it's just like a grueling thing for any actor knows this. Is just like you're constantly in your car back then." So she just was like, "I want to avoid this at all costs." But then a producer friend of hers said, "If you don't take Vinessa into an agency, I will." So she got strong-armed into it, and basically the rest is history. Yeah.
So with Hocus Pocus, when you get that at 16 years old, what is Vanessa's take on like Halloween? Are you stoked that you're making like a Halloween-centric movie? Or is it just like another, like, it's awesome that I'm working with Matt Miller and Sarah Jessica Parker and they're witches or whatever, but
Yeah.
because if it was me, I think if anybody around here, Halloween, like, that's just like the cherry on top of the first gig type of a thing. Not only are you casted, not only do you have this cast, but guess what? The whole story takes place on Halloween night.
Right. I think for me, I didn't love Halloween. My favorite holiday was Thanksgiving. So I'm a Mormon cozy person. Just loved Thanksgiving and giving. Well, now it's a different holiday, but what it originally was for me was, appreciating people. But I think for me, because I grew up watching The Wizard of Oz, I was like, oh my God, I am 16, literally the same age as Judy Garland was when she was making Wizard of Oz, and it's a movie about witches, and like, this is literally my dream come true. So it's more about the witch aspect of it, because most people don't know this, but it was actually a darker movie originally, and when we finally got on set, it was rewritten to be comedic, and with the ladies who were cast, I just don't remember if they must have already been cast, because why would they make the movie without it, but out them. But I just think they just, beefed it up in a comedic way to use their talents.
So they were going to be more sinister.
They were going to be more sinister, more like the Wicked Witch of the West.
Wow, that's interesting to think, because it's hard to imagine them without the bits between the three of them.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the whole movie.
Yeah, like it's not the same without Winifred sulking, but Sarah Jessica's hopping up and down constantly.
Yeah.
Like,
they're like the Three Stooges, but in witch form.
they really are. But you guys, you got some really cool little, like, witch kill scenes that you guys got to do between, like, this is the biblioteca, and the...
what's my book? Yeah.
The scene in Max's bedroom, that is the scene that scared me as a kid. When you guys are, like, passed out, and you're like, where's Danny, and she's under the blanket, and then... That, I don't know what it was about that scene other than just the startle scare, but God, that is the one scene that stuck out to me upon rewatches as a kid, like, oh, here comes the scene. Like, the scene.
You're really prepared
Yeah,
yourself
yeah.
for it. Wait, how old were you when you watched it?
How old do you think I was when I watched it?
I'm not gonna guess that.
I would say it came out. Actually, one of my fellow moderators, I tell this story. He's my 5th grade teacher, and so I want to say Hocus Pocus came out somewhere like around 5th grade.
Yeah, 10 or something.
Yeah.
I think it's just like a Jack in the Box thing. Like either people are scared of Sarah Jessica's part or they're scared of when Billy comes out. It's like that scare of like boom, you know. It's just a Jack in the Box scare. Like some kids hate Jack in the Box.
I definitely
don't like
wanted
it.
to dance with Billy. Billy didn't. I was
Aww, cute.
yeah, he was cool. Like still, I mean, the sequel.
He's so cool. Yeah.
All the character designs that went into that movie too, not just their costumes, but Billy, and even like Church. Going in and having that be like a really kind of early first major role, that's kind of hell of an undertaking to take on, because you're having to act with that cast, but you're also having to act up against like a puppet with Church. What was that?
With who? With Church. Who's Church?
Or Binks.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking Church Pet Cemetery.
She's like, yeah, what?
Yeah, with good old Zachary.
Yeah, Zachary.
How was that?
Binks or
working
Doug?
with
Binks, it was literally a cat. So like it was, I tell this story all the time. I think I'm the only one who remembers this, but the animal trainer had a wall full of cats. And apparently you can only teach a cat one trick. So dogs, you can teach many tricks, but there's a cat, you can teach them one trick. So for all of what you see as Binks, it's many cats chopped up into one character. Yeah, if you want a cat to bat you, it's one cat. If you want them to jump on you, if you want them to sleep with you, if you want them to walk with you, if you want them, like literally, it's hilarious. And then I just remember the cats being on the far side of the wall, like a whole, each of them in their kennels waiting to do their part. And we would have to do these, I don't know if any of you know about working with animals, but what you do is you give the animal a treat while you're doing the scene. And then they know to follow you because they're, it's a Pavlovian thing. They get in their mind, okay, that person's going to give me a treat if I do it right. But then you just replace the treat with a buzzer. It's very Pavlovian. And so then you're buzzing your pocket or your sweater, whatever that is you're using for the scene, and they would follow you or do whatever they needed to do, bat, or whatever. But the hardest scene was when after we fall asleep, wake up, and then we're saying, can we do anything for Binks? Open the book, and the witches come back. But if you remember, Binks slams it shut and goes, nothing good could come from this book. Don't do that, And the cat had to do two things, so it was very challenging. Had to jump and then bat. So it was going, it was literally like we were talking to it and it kept batting us, and we're like, okay, it's just going crazy. And they're like, cut! And so it was just like, it was like as if it was batting a fly, and we're like, oh my God, this is so funny. Kept going, jumping on the book over and over again. And I literally went home because the actor at the time who was the, human form, Sean Murray, was doing the off-camera lines. And he kept saying, the cat would jump and say, nothing good can come from this book. And I was like, and then he kept doing it because the cat kept going, at the wrong time. It's supposed to be stop or whatever to our lines. It's very hard. So he just kept saying, cut, nothing good can come from this book, cut. And so I kind of went home like, nothing good could come from this book. Okay, that I remember his line more than any of my lines in the movie because of how repetitive it was. So that was the most difficult part. I did not mind doing any of the other things with the cats because I thought it was so cool that you could teach a cat a trick and have it do it. But I think Omri and Thora felt otherwise. They could have done without the cat, buzzing and giving them a treat because you kind of smelled afterwards, catnip.
The battle with you guys on that soundstage in the cemetery. you've got probably easily like top 5 like body motion actor in Doug Jones
I know.
with
Exactly.
playing Billy. Then he's like you said, he's a nice zombie.
Yes.
But that whole setup, like, I love going to haunted houses.
Mm-hmm.
And Universal's best ones that they always do, I was talking to these guys earlier, are the ones that are in the sound stages because it gives you a glimpse of how intricate those, like you mentioned, the set designs could be. So, how long did you guys spend on that whole sequence? Because there's wire play involved, because they swoop in, they're above you guys for a while because they can't touch the holy ground, and then eventually, finally, they fall. But a lot of that is you guys like swatting with the tree branches,
Right.
and everything else. So like, how challenging was that? How long did that whole like final battle, if you will, take you guys to do?
It's a good question. I don't remember how long exactly, but I remember it took like a big portion of the movie, probably a couple weeks, because of them being on their harnesses, and that took a lot of time to rig them. If anyone's ever been in a harness, just for whatever reason, it's painful. I didn't have to do that in this movie, but I did it in another movie. I was like, oh, good Lord. Just it's leather and it just chafes everywhere. Just imagine. So they had to do these, I'm sure that did not happen in this second one, but because I think they just CGI'd it, but they were on real harnesses and wires and had to go and fly above us and all that. So I feel like that scene must have taken a lot longer than maybe it would have normally nowadays. So yeah, I just remember it probably taking a couple weeks, and a lot of it was done with them, but also some of it was done with their stunt doubles. Like I remember holding on to the vacuum cord, and I'd say, on the count of 3, release, and I just remember like it being that person being Mary's stunt double for that. So there was a lot of makeup and hair that they had to do, and we were children, so when they were finally ready, it was like the end of our day. So there's a lot of time where you're seeing us in the movie and we're acting, but we're acting with imagining them off screen or doing it with their stunt doubles.
Before we open it up to Q&A, I would be remiss, especially since you talked about the house where they're filming horror movies down below.
In the gulch where I grew up, yeah.
And you say you're not a horror fan, but as fate would have it, your career leads you to a remake of a movie that when I first saw it, and you IMDb, and I'm like, there's no way that is Allison from Hocus Pocus. And so you're in the remake of The Hills Have Eyes, one of the scariest movies of all time.
Yes. From what I hear because I don't watch horror movies, but from people who, like you, who love horror movies, they say it's the scariest remake.
Yeah, it is like in an era in which people love to complain about remakes or rehashes and where's the creativity and yada yada yada. And horror fans are amazing, but by God, if you mess up our characters, we will get angry.
I know.
And that Hills Have Eyes rehash is one of those perfect ones where they they nailed it. They paid homage to the original, and they kept it in the same, they put it in their own vein while respecting where they're coming from. And so,
true.
But with you not liking scary stuff, obviously on set, all the guests we have, it's like he's breaking necks on screen and giving you hugs at the convention. But on that set, you get scared? Were you like, dang, this is going to be an intense movie? How was that for you?
Well, interestingly enough, that movie took place in New Mexico, which we should have shot it in New Mexico, but at that point, it was just kind of boring Hollywood talk. But, they didn't have the tax incentive that they could, and so the director is French, Alex Ajan. He did this movie High Tension, which was amazing, and he, when you're French, you like easily vacation in Morocco. So he's like, oh, there's some hills there that look exactly like New Mexico. And so the whole cast flew to Morocco to shoot this movie, and it was a different culture, different world. And it was Morocco in the middle of the Sahara Desert, so it was literally in the middle of nowhere. And it was not that hard to imagine you being in the middle of nowhere, first of all. And then Kathleen Quinlan, who plays my mom in the movie, who I love, just loved her from Breakdown. That was one of my favorite movies. Anyway, she and I took this vacation when we had a couple days off, where we were taken by a driver who's Moroccan, who only spoke French. Neither of us spoke French or Arabic. So he took us in the middle of nowhere and said, oh, we can take you somewhere. That was the last translation we got. And then I was like speaking Spanish to him, hoping he could understand. And he speaks in French. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that kind of sounds like... Anyway, it was bizarre. But we went to go and see the indigenous people in Morocco, which are called the Berbers. And he starts driving down this rocky part of the road, and there's no road. All of a sudden, there's no road. And she and I are looking at each other and going, where are we going? This is very similar to maybe something that could happen in this movie that we're doing. And we just so happen to be taking our own trip down this non-existent road. And so we go down this road, and then all of a sudden he stops in the middle of nowhere, and we're like, okay. And he says, this way, and he literally points to where we're going, and it looks like something out of like Indiana Jones, where it's like all of a sudden there's a side, like a break in the middle of the road, and he takes us down these steps that go around underneath in this cave. Wow. Where these Berber people were drinking Moroccan tea. Now, I don't know if it was a Disneyland setup thing in their world, but it felt authentic and real, and we had tea with them, and we moved on. But in that one moment, both of us were like, okay, this is our end. This is too close to life. Too close to the movie, and now, art imitates life at this point, and life imitates art. So that's one experience that, was too close to home on that movie. Yeah, but otherwise, shooting in the middle of the Sahara Desert with the hills being, literally lit up at night with no one beyond them, or were there anyone beyond them? We don't know. So easily the hills could have had eyes.
Did you get a chance to check out Hocus Pocus 2 yet?
I did.
Do you like it?
Yeah, I thought it was good.
The book is very different than what they did. I'm sure the book to the original is very different too. They usually are. But it was interesting that because the book is centered around Allison Max's daughter.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
And
I haven't read the book, but it seems like a cool premise.
Ice's buddy is the school principal.
That's funny.
And so
Jay is?
Jay's the principal.
What? Funny.
And the demographic of like the friendship with the girls kind of happens between your guys' daughter and Jay's daughter.
Oh.
And so it's like they kind of have to figure things out as the Sandersons come back, and there's a whole thing. But is Hocus Pocus, that was the one complaint that I have seen online, which I'm sure you can guess what it is where's Max, Allison, and Danny?
Yeah.
Is that a world in which you would ever, return to? Because now they're already like Hocus Pocus 3. I saw a thing from Bet and Kathy and Sarah that they were like, if they're going to do a third one, we're down.
Huh.
So,
interesting. I didn't even see that.
Is that something that you would want to revisit?
Oh, I clearly stated that I love this movie, and I find it to be magical, just like you do, and I would be honored to do another, the third one.
Another round with the Sandersons.
Another round with the Sandersons. I don't know if anyone wants to do it with us, but if they're down, You know, it seems like they don't. I don't know. He's like,
I mean, I'm kind of that statement alone. It kind of flabbergasted me because
aw,
we waited 30 something years almost for the second
right
one.
down to the day.
So
No, I
of
know.
course we want
I mean, all of you have come to my table, felt the same way. I've gone to many of these conventions, and, you know, of course, you know, there's other people that make decisions,
Oh,
you
sure.
know, and we have nothing to do with it, you know,
Right,
so you can just express that you love the movie, which I always will, you know. And I always love Allison, especially Allison, who's been, interestingly enough, like a role model for a lot of women,
For
young
sure.
women, and you know, I can't thank everyone enough for appreciating her. So
she's just like a strong female figure, man.
Yeah.
Like she is really. It's not really Max that battles them. Like
I
she
know.
It is not. It is not his sword that you guys carry. It's definitely yours.
yes, yes,
So
I know. I think people, you know, who didn't grow up with it. Maybe there's people involved who didn't grow up with it, so they made the decision against that. So. I mean, even the director of the movie, I heard through, I did an interview with some of the other cast members for Entertainment Weekly, and they're like, oh yeah, we went back and asked the director, and the director said it would have been too distracting to have those people in the sequel. So it's like, that's the choice, you know?
that's interesting.
I know, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
with that, does anybody?
That was a
have-
weird note to land on, but
I know.
hopefully you guys have a more uplifting question, or it doesn't have to be uplifting. You can say whatever you want.
Does anybody? Vanessa has a ton of pretty rad credits, so it doesn't have to necessarily be Sanderson. Hocus
And what a
Pocus.
cutie over there. Hi. You too, but you know. Oh my gosh, it is the best. Especially now that I have like a 4.5-year-old, I'm like debating on whether showing him the movie this year. It's so funny because his preschool teacher grew up watching it, and she's like, we went to go pick pumpkins with the class, and she's like, the Halloween icon with my favorite student. I was like, oh my God, she took a picture of us, and I was just like, I love you, you're so hilarious, you know. But she's, you know, one of many of you who like grew up watching it, and it's so great because as I share a lot of the times that at a lot of these conventions, that it was around like 2008 it started really becoming like popular again, or where it was noticeable. And I think it's when, you know, the kids who watched it started having kids, and then, you know, maybe the grandma who brought them to it is now introducing more people, you know, who you know, just find that magic. And now it's finally reaching the kind of popularity that I thought it should have deserved back in the 90s, 93, because we thought it was going to be amazing and just, you know, break box office records. It was, you know, we thought it was weird. It was released in July, and which made it be a box office flop. But we were like, oh, they must really believe in this, that this could be a box office giant. And so when it wasn't, which was hard because we were competing against The Firm and Jurassic Park, which were just like
Yeah.
crap, you know. Those are like blockbuster movies beyond. So, you know, so now it's even snowballing into beyond what I could imagine. So I just think it's going to outlive me. And I just love that. I love that I'm part of something that could be inspiring and fun. Like I said, I grew up watching Disney movies. So if, you know, I ever saw Julie Andrews, I'd probably fall on the floor, you know. So it's like, she's older and, you know, one day won't be here, but we all love Mary Poppins, you know. So it's like that kind of legacy that I felt like, you know, I could never have imagined being a part of. And now it's snowballing into even more of what I thought it could be. Yeah.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Hi. I don't know if everyone heard, but he said when you were considering doing The Hills Have Eyes, did you watch the original? And, or if that wasn't the reason to do it, what was it that made you decide? And it was Alex Aja. He really, he was a fan. Again, this was before Hocus Pocus grew into what it was, but he was a fan of Kubrick's, and he was also, just a fan of other movies I had done, and just loved the gravitas I had in those movies. And he's one of those people who are a rare breed of directors who are for hire by the studio, but definitely declares to them who he wants. So he wanted Kathleen Quinlan, Ted Levine, Aaron Stanford, Dan Bird, Emily Draven, and me, and told the studio, this is who I want. And we were all shocked because we don't have to audition or do any jumping through hoops. And he said, this is the way I want to do it. I want to do it, based on the American, secret of, atomic bomb testing and how that could have affected the society, and that's why The Hills Have Eyes versus, just pure crazy cannibals, So I was just like, okay, I'm doing this. I love him, and he just proved to be, such a fan of all of ours, and I'm a fan of all the people who are in it. So I was just like, he's smart in who he wants to decide to be in this movie, and I was like, that's it, because I actually saw the original after already signing on. Yeah.
You guys, we are actually short on time, so if you do have a question for Vinessa, she'll be back at her table. Make sure you go and say hello.
Yeah, just come say hi.
And you got a little bit more time before she's got to go fight the Sandersons. But everybody, man,
so
Hocus Pocus, cult classic without a doubt. Hills Have Eyes, another cult classic without a doubt. Give it up.
Thank you. Hey, that's a good. Thank you all. Thank you for coming to see me. That is a good point. The cult classic, The Hills Have Eyes, because most people say the cult classic world ended in 2000, but that was 2004. No, but now I really am like, oh yeah, okay, that is one example.
There's more cult classics.
Okay, you tell me then.
You got Cabin in the Woods. You got
all kinds
of good.
That's true.
Stuff.
Even though I don't see them, as you know. All right. Well, thank you all.
Give it up one more time, you guys.